StoryWave.ai. Smash that like button and subscribe for more.
Chapter 1. Divine Tides. In the fathomless realm of the Cerulean Sea, where the waters whispered ancient secrets, Poseidon, the earth-shaker, reigned supreme. His kingdom, a mosaic of wonder, stretched beyond the horizon, where the sky kissed the ocean. Here Poseidon sat on his throne, a structure carved from coral and pearl, the envy of any sovereign who laid eyes upon it. His seafoam green locks flowed like the tides, and his deep blue gaze mirrored the eternal depths over which he held dominion. The Earthshaker's days were filled with the adoration of nymphs, the council of sea creatures, and the governance of his watery expanse. Yet, as centuries slipped through time's relentless grasp, a certain weariness settled upon his sturdy shoulders. Immortality, a gift to some, became a monotonous affliction to him, an endless cycle of tides without the thrill of uncertainty, without the spice of mortality's fleeting nature. On one seemingly indistinct day, as the sun bled its golden hues into the Aegean Sea, Poseidon emerged from his element, the cool embrace of water giving way to the warmth of the sun-drenched coast. His eyes, accustomed to the ocean's embrace, adjusted to the brilliance of the surface world. The Earthshaker's gaze then fell upon a sight that seized his immortal heart and quelled the ennui that had long been his silent companion. Althea, a mortal of unparalleled grace, walked along the shoreline. Her slender form was a silhouette against the canvas of the setting sun. Sandy blonde tresses, kissed by light, cascaded down her back, and her hazel eyes reflected the vastness of the world she knew. She moved with the gentle assurance of one who serves a higher purpose, her radiant aura untouched by the concerns of the divine. A temple priestess, she was, devoted to the rites and rituals that honored the gods, yet blissfully unaware of the eyes of one such deity upon her at that very moment. Her spirit animal, the dolphin, a symbol of kindness and intelligence, seemed to guide her steps as she went about her sacred duties. The Earthshaker, often stoic and commanding, found himself entranced, his usual composure wavering like the surface of a disturbed sea. The sight of Althea stirred an unfamiliar tumult within his chest, a yearning for something beyond the scope of his immortal experience. Can it be that such a creature exists upon the land I so seldom cherish? Poseidon mused to himself, his voice a rumble that resonated with the waves. She moves with the elegance of the tides and carries the warmth of the sun within her smile. Unseen by mortal eyes, he approached closer, each step an awakening, as if the sands of time shifted beneath his feet, realigning the destiny of God and mortal alike. The Earthshaker was no stranger to the affections of many, yet the innocence and purity that Althea exuded were rarities that he had not encountered in aeons. As the priestess gathered her offerings from the shore, her melodic voice lifted in prayer, a sound so divine that even the sirens would cease their songs to listen. Poseidon felt a surge within him, a powerful urge to respond, to converse, to engage with the being who unknowingly had captivated his divine interest. "Fair priestess," Poseidon said, his voice now but a whisper to her mortal ears, carried by the sea breeze. "Why do you grace the shores with your presence at the cusp of Eve's embrace?" Startled by the sudden voice, Althea turned, her gaze searching for the speaker. "Who addresses me?" she queried, her tone a blend of curiosity and caution. Her eyes searched the horizon, where the sea met the sky in a dance of colors, but no figure stood there to meet her gaze. Poseidon, realizing the limitations of his ethereal form to her mortal senses, willed a portion of his essence into a shape more pleasing and approachable to human eyes. "I am but a traveler, drawn to the beauty of the coast, and to the serenity of your voice," he spoke, now standing before her as a man of flesh and blood. Althea's eyes widened slightly at the sight of the handsome stranger, his sturdy build and commanding presence altogether different from the men of her village. "Traveler," she repeated, the term rolling off her tongue with a touch of disbelief. "These shores are seldom visited by outsiders. What wind brings you to this sacred place?" Their conversation, lengthy and brimming with context, wove through topics of life, of the divine, and of the mysteries that lay beneath the waves. Poseidon, disguised in mortal guise, found himself revealing truths of the sea and of the heart, careful to shroud his divine nature, yet earnest in his desire to connect with Althea. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars claimed the heavens, Poseidon realized that the sacrifice of his heart was inevitable. In the presence of Althea, he had found something worth cherishing, worth desiring beyond the limits of his immortal coil, a spark that could quell the unyielding tide of divine existence. Chapter 2. Forbidden Spark. Amidst the celestial expanse where deities reign, a notion as heretical as love between the immortal and the mortal was more than mere taboo. It was a transgression against the very fabric of divine order. Yet within the heart of Poseidon, such a decree had begun to lose its weight, the scales tipping in favor of a yearning that transcended the laws of gods and men. In the aftermath of their initial encounter, the Earthshaker found himself returning to the Aegean coast, drawn by an invisible thread woven by the fates themselves. Althea, with her unblemished spirit and ethereal countenance, inhabited his thoughts like a siren's song impossible to silence. The tempest of his emotions raged against the bulwark of his ancient duty, the tumultuous waves of desire threatening to breach the steadfast walls. As the Earthshaker wrestled with his longing, the skies above mirrored his inner discord. Clouds as dark as the abyssal depths gathered with an ominous promise, and the winds howled with the fury of 1,000 storms. The sea, once a bastion of his calm dominion, churned with violence. Upon the coast, Althea, oblivious to the celestial drama unfolding, found herself caught amidst nature's sudden wrath. The skies wept torrents, and the gales lashed against her slender frame as she sought shelter. The waters, once her allies, now rose to claim her in their cold embrace. From his vantage point, Poseidon beheld the peril of his cherished mortal. With a surge of resolve, he commanded the elements to abate, but the storm, a creature of its own volition, defied even his will. Thus, with a heavy heart, he descended into the realm of mortality once more, cloaked in the guise of a mere sailor to intervene. "Althea!" he called over the roaring tempest, reaching her side with preternatural swiftness. His sturdy arms wrapped around her, shielding her from the unforgiving elements. "Fear not, for I shall not let harm befall thee." Her hazel eyes met his deep blue ones, a flash of recognition sparking amidst the chaos. "Your voice," she gasped, her melodic tone barely rising above the din. "It is you, the traveler from the shore." "Aye," he affirmed, steadying her against the onslaught. "We must seek refuge, lest the sea claims what it should not." Together they battled the storm's fury, Poseidon's divine essence cloaked within his mortal form, yet exerting its will subtly upon the natural world. The winds lessened their rage, the waters retreated with reluctant obedience, and the safety of shelter loomed ahead, a beacon in the dark. Sequestered from the storm, Poseidon and Althea found solace in the quiet of an ancient cave, the Earthshaker's heart pounding with a fervor unbefitting a god. The candlelight within the grotto danced upon her features, casting a glow upon her sandy blonde hair, and he found himself entranced, a captive to her beauty. "Why does the sea rage against us so?" Althea inquired, her voice a gentle whisper that vied with the fading echoes of thunder. "The sea is a reflection of the world above and below," Poseidon mused, his words measured. "It is capricious, sometimes peaceful, sometimes violent. Perhaps it envies the tranquility you possess, or maybe it yearns for the warmth you radiate." Their exchange, a tapestry of confessions and veiled truths, continued long into the night. Each word Poseidon uttered was a petal plucked from the flower of his concealed divinity, revealing shades of his identity through metaphor and allegory. Althea, her spirit attuned to the mysteries of the divine, listened with rapt attention, her intuition discerning the extraordinary nature of her protector. "You speak of the sea as one who has known its heart," she observed. "Your words carry the weight of eons, yet there is a tenderness within them that belies a soul not untouched by love." Poseidon, caught within the snare of her insight, felt the walls around his heart crumble. To love Althea was to defy Olympus, to risk the wrath of those who would not understand or accept the mingling of divine blood with that of mortals. Yet the Earthshaker knew that some sparks, once ignited, cannot be quelled, and the sacrifice of his heart was already made. As dawn's light crept into the cave, signaling an end to the tempest and their seclusion, Poseidon stood before Althea, a deity in the guise of a man, torn between two worlds. The challenge he must face was clear, and the sacrifice required of him loomed on the horizon like the dawn of a new age. Chapter 3. A Mortal's Touch. In the clandestine embrace of twilight, the Earthshaker found himself once again on the mortal shores, the churning sea a backdrop to the unfolding narrative of forbidden love. Althea, the temple priestess, whose very presence had become the axis upon which his world turned, awaited him with a countenance that mirrored the stars' luminous display. Their meetings, shrouded in secrecy, became an oasis in the parched desert of their reality. Each clandestine encounter was a treasure hoarded against the inevitability of discovery, as whispers of their growing bond began to seep into the consciousness of both divine and mortal realms. Earthshaker, Althea greeted him, her voice the embodiment of the ocean's caress. Your presence brings life to the stillness of my days. Poseidon, cloaked in the guise of mortality, responded with a smile that belied his inner turmoil. Althea, light of the Aegean, it is I who am enlivened by the mere thought of your company, he confessed, his voice an echo of the sea's depth. Their conversations, rich tapestries of shared dreams and silent fears, wove between them a connection that defied the edicts of Olympus. With every word exchanged, they stitched the fabric of a bond that held the power to alter the very course of fate. On this fateful eve, as the moon held court in the heavens, Poseidon and Althea stood at the ocean's edge, their hands entwined, the cool foam kissing their feet. The Earthshaker, emboldened by the purity of his love, offered a sacred vow to the mortal whose essence had become indistinguishable from his own. By the ceaseless tide and the eternal cycle of the moon, I pledge my essence to thee, Althea, Poseidon declared, his voice a solemn rumble that resonated with the ocean's timeless cadence. Though the heavens may scorn and the earth may reject, my devotion shall remain as steadfast as the currents that carve the seabed. Althea, her gaze fixed upon the deity who stood before her as a man, felt the weight of his words settle upon her heart. And I to you, Earthshaker, pledge my mortal days, she vowed in return, her voice steady as the horizon line. For a love that transcends the boundary of life and death is a love that defies the passage of time itself. Their mutual declaration, a sacred covenant forged in the crucible of their clandestine passion, was a witness to the challenge they faced. It was a sacrifice that bound not only their hearts but their destinies, intertwining them in a dance as perilous as it was profound. Yet, as the night deepened and the stars bore witness to their union, the lovers remained painfully aware of the need for concealment. Eyes, both human and divine, were ever watchful, and the price of their affection, should it be unveiled, was a cost too great to fathom. In the shelter of the Earthshaker's embrace, Althea allowed herself a moment of respite from the mantle of secrecy that weighed heavily upon her. Poseidon, feeling the tremble of her resolve, tightened his hold, a silent promise to weather the storm that loomed on the horizon. Their love, a bloom in the garden of the gods, dared to flourish in the face of celestial decrees. With each passing day, the lovers drew from each other the strength to face the trials that lay ahead. And though the world held its breath in anticipation of the inevitable clash between the decrees of Olympus and the desires of the heart, Poseidon and Althea found solace in the knowledge that their love, like the sea, was boundless. Chapter 4. Divine Disfavor. In the opulent halls of Olympus, where the whims of gods shaped the tapestry of mortal lives, Zeus the Thunderer sat upon his throne. His lightning-gray eyes reflected a gathering storm, a tempest born not of clouds and sea but of divine indignation. News had reached his ears, whispers of an affair most forbidden, a love blossoming between his brother Poseidon and a mortal maiden. The king of the gods, his countenance as imposing as the mountain upon which he resided, summoned the Earthshaker with a voice that rumbled like the approach of a relentless tide. The atmosphere within the marble-columned palace crackled with tension, the air heavy with the scent of an impending decree. Poseidon, brother mine, speak the truth of these murmurs that disturb the peace of our celestial domain, Zeus demanded, his tone the embodiment of authority. Poseidon, who had stood before kings and titans, now found himself a supplicant before the might of Zeus's gaze. My heart has chosen its path, he admitted, his deep blue eyes reflecting a storm of emotion. Althea, the woman of whom you speak, has indeed captured my affection. Zeus's full beard bristled with the undercurrent of his rising wrath. You defy the sacred laws that govern us. You risk the very order upon which our reign is built. The Earthshaker, his sturdy form and evidence to the undying strength of the oceans, met the Thunderer's gaze with a solemn determination. "I seek no rebellion against your rule, brother. Yet, I cannot deny the essence of my being, nor the sincerity of my commitment to Althea." The exchange, a volley of words as charged as the lightning Zeus wielded, resonated through the halls of power. The other deities, from their seats of privilege, looked on with a mixture of fascination and fear, knowing well the consequences of such defiance. Zeus, sensing the need for a display of his omnipotence, rose from his throne. His voice, a crescendo of thunderous might, echoed his decree. "Then, as punishment, and as a warning to those who might follow your example, I shall remind you of the dominion I hold over the cosmos." With a motion that commanded the heavens, Zeus sent forth a sign, a rare celestial storm that streaked across the sky with ominous portent. The phenomenon, visible to both gods and mortals, was a manifestation of his disfavor, a premonition of the inescapable consequences that awaited those who erred. On the Aegean coast, Althea, her slender form a solitary figure against the seascape, witnessed the foreboding spectacle. The sky, a canvas of divine displeasure, blazed with unnatural hues as bolts of lightning traced patterns of warning across the firmament. The Earthshaker, bound by his divine senses, felt the stirrings of his brother's wrath and knew the gravity of the omen. He sought out Althea, finding her beneath the tempestuous sky, her sandy blonde hair whipped by the winds of fate. "Althea," Poseidon spoke, his voice infused with an urgency that belied his calm exterior. "The heavens themselves reveal the peril of our bond. Zeus has cast his gaze upon us, and his judgment is as inexorable as the shifting continents." Althea, her hazel eyes reflecting the celestial maelstrom, turned to face the deity who had defied the heavens for her sake. "What does this mean for us?" she asked, her tone steady despite the undercurrent of concern. "It is an evidence to the sacrifice we must be willing to make," Poseidon replied, his words carrying the weight of an ocean's depth. "For the path of true affection often winds through the thicket of adversity." As the lovers stood, united in the face of divine disfavor, the reality of their situation became as clear as the crystal waters over which Poseidon ruled. Their future, once a beacon of hope, now hung in the balance, the scales tipped by the decree of the Thunderer. Yet, even as the storm raged above, Poseidon and Althea held fast to the vow they had shared by the ocean's edge. Their commitment, though fraught with challenge, was as unyielding as the tide. And though the celestial storm signaled a future uncertain and fraught with tribulation, their resolve remained unshaken, for the truest measure of sacrifice is the willingness to endure for the sake of love. Chapter 5. Heart's Defiance. As the mantle of night descended upon the realm of mortals, the Aegean coast whispered secrets to those who dared listen. Poseidon, cloaked in the form of a man, traversed the sands with silent steps, his heart a compass pointed unwaveringly towards Althea. The temple priestess, her soul alight with defiance, awaited her divine consort in a secluded cove where the rattle of the outside world was drowned by the lull of the waves. The sea, reflecting the lustrous glow of the moon, offered a serene backdrop to their rendezvous. Althea, her slender figure wrapped in a simple robe that billowed with the sea breeze, turned her gaze upon Poseidon as he emerged from the shadows. "I feared the wrath of your kin might have stayed your journey," Althea spoke, her voice tinged with the relief that accompanied his arrival. Poseidon approached, the sands beneath his feet bearing the weight of his decision. "Not wrath nor decree could hinder my path to you," he assured, his tone an evidence to his unwavering resolve. Their exchange, a melodic dance of words, resonated with the gravity of their situation. Each sentence, rich with meaning and laden with the unsaid, wove a bond ever stronger in the face of celestial condemnation. Poseidon, the depth of his oceanic eyes reflecting the moon's shimmer, contemplated the gravity of their union. Althea, with each meeting, we weave a tapestry of rebellion, a narrative penned with the ink of heart over heritage. Althea met his gaze, her hazel eyes steady as the bedrock beneath them. "And so we shall continue, for a love that defies the heavens is a love that speaks to the essence of existence itself." Their conversation, an evidence to their shared courage, spanned the length of the night, a time borrowed from the fates. As the constellations charted their silent vigil across the sky, Poseidon unveiled a token of his power, a tear-shaped pendant, wrought from the very essence of the deep. This amulet, Poseidon said, the trinket gleaming in his hand, is imbued with a fragment of my realm's might. Should danger befall you, let it be your shield, a barrier against the tempest's rage. Althea accepted the gift, her fingers brushing against his, the cool surface of the pendant a stark contrast to the warmth of their touch. Your power, bound within this jewel, is a comfort and a reminder of our bond. As dawn approached, heralding their parting, the lovers stood united in the face of forbidding skies. Their secret tryst, an act of defiance against divine decree, served to steel their spirits for the tribulations that lay ahead. Their love, a heart's rebellion, had set them upon a course charted by star-crossed desire. And as the first light of morning touched the horizon, bathing the world in its gentle radiance, Poseidon and Althea knew that their defiance was not merely an act of passion, but an escalation in the sacrifice they were destined to make. For in their hearts, they recognized that true devotion often demands the greatest of tributes, the courage to stand against the might of the gods. Chapter 6, Zeus's Decree. High above the mortal realm, where clouds form the chariots of the gods, Zeus, the sovereign of Olympus, reached the limits of his forbearance. The celestial order, which had persevered through the ages, now faced the mutiny of the heart, a challenge imposed by the ocean's keeper, Poseidon, and his mortal beloved. Within the marbled grandeur of his palace, Zeus summoned the Earthshaker, the air around them charged with divine expectation. Poseidon entered, his stride resonant with the power of the tides, yet his visage betrayed none of the turmoil that seized his spirit. Poseidon, you stand in defiance of the order that binds us, Zeus began, his voice a low rumble akin to the distant peal of thunder. Your desire for the mortal Althea undermines the fabric that holds our kind above the fray of human frailty. The sea deity met the gaze of the god-king, his deep blue eyes as tumultuous as the ocean during a storm. Zeus, my loyalty to our kin has never wavered, he replied. Yet, to deny the call of the heart is to deny the very essence that makes us divine. The god-king's white beard, a symbol of his ageless wisdom, bristled as he considered his brother's words. Such sentiment is folly. It is the reason we must stand apart, lest we succumb to the chaos that governs the fleeting lives of mortals. Their exchange was as the meeting of opposing currents, each forceful and unyielding. Their words, though respectful, conveyed the gravity of the situation, a contest of wills between two beings of immeasurable influence. It is not for us to dictate where the heart may lead, Poseidon insisted, his commanding presence undiminished by the authority of Olympus. Even we are not immune to the pull of genuine affection. Zeus stood, his imposing figure casting a shadow that seemed to darken the skies. Then a choice you must make, brother. Abandon this folly, or face exile from the realm of the gods. Your place among us or your love for Althea, decide. The Earthshaker's stoic demeanor faltered, as before him unfurled the path of sacrifice he was to tread. His love for Althea had kindled a fire that threatened to engulf his divine heritage. Before Poseidon could voice his resolve, Zeus, with a wave of his hand, unleashed his decree upon the world. The sky above the Aegean Sea darkened with a sudden, unnatural eclipse, the sun's light swallowed whole by a maelstrom of divine origin. Below, Althea stood upon the shores, her sandy blonde hair dancing with the gales that the eclipse had birthed. Her hazel eyes watched in horror as the ocean roared, the waves rising like the fists of titans, foretelling her impending doom. The Earthshaker, sensing the shift in the elements, knew the god-king's intervention was a prophet of catastrophe. Althea, he cried out, his voice carrying the anguish of impending loss. The sea deity, torn between his immortal brethren and the woman who anchored his soul, faced the embodiment of the sacrifice archetype. The cataclysm that Zeus had wrought was but a prelude to the suffering that awaited, should he choose the path of the heart. As the heavens churned and the sea raged, Poseidon's choice became clear. His love for Althea would not falter, even if it meant renouncing his celestial throne. The escalation of sacrifice had reached its zenith, and in defiance of Zeus's will, Poseidon prepared to forsake Olympus to save the mortal who had captured the essence of his divine heart. Chapter 7. A Fate Sealed. Upon the marble altars of the Aegean temple, where salt-laden breezes mingled with the scent of incense. The air hummed with the somber tones of a sacrificial ceremony. Althea, her slender form draped in the ceremonial robes of her office, moved with a solemn grace, her every gesture an homage to the deities she served. Poseidon, hidden from mortal eyes, watched from the tempestuous sea that reflected the turmoil within him, a silent guardian to the woman whose life now hung by the slenderest of threads. The temple, a venerable edifice of ancient stone, echoed with the reverent voices of the gathered faithful. They awaited the blessing of the gods, unaware that the very heavens conspired against their priestess. Althea raised her arms skyward, her hazel eyes closed in devout concentration as she invoked the divine favor. The air stilled, a portentous calm before the storm of Zeus's wrath. Poseidon felt the shift, the ominous charge that coiled in the atmosphere. "Althea," he whispered, his voice a mixture of warning and despair, carried on the wind. Her eyelids fluttered open at the sound, a frown creasing her brow as she scanned the heavens. The sky above, once a clear azure, darkened as if stained by the ichor of gods. A bolt of lightning, the harbinger of Zeus's decree, lanced down from the heavens, a jagged spear aimed at the heart of his defiance. The earthshaker surged forward, his divine form breaching the boundary between god and mortal, desperation lending him speed. But even his might could not outpace the thunderer's will. The lightning struck, a flash of incandescent fury that illuminated the temple and the faces of the worshippers. Althea's form was engulfed, her body a conduit for the celestial power that Zeus wielded. Poseidon's cry, a roar of anguish and rage, drowned out the gasps of the mortals as he reached her side. The temple stone beneath her was fractured, a web of destruction radiating from where she lay. Althea's sandy blonde hair, once vibrant with life, now splayed around her, her skin pale as the foam upon his sea. He cradled her in his arms, the warmth that once radiated from her now fading like the last rays of the setting sun. "Althea," he murmured, his voice a deep tremor that matched the quaking earth. "Forgive me, for I have failed you." Around them, the mortals recoiled in fear and awe, witnessing the revelation of the earthshaker's true visage. The sea roared, a mirror to Poseidon's grief, as the sky wept torrents, Zeus's storm a lament for the tragedy wrought. Why? Poseidon demanded of the heavens, his sorrow-laden gaze searching for his brother. Was there no other path but this? But the heavens offered no reply, only the rolling thunder that seemed to mock his plea. In the silence that followed, as the last of Althea's breath slipped away, Poseidon knew what he must do. His love for Althea had been an act of rebellion, a defiance that had now sealed her fate, but it was a path he had chosen, and he would walk it to its bitter end. With the sea as his witness, Poseidon vowed to reclaim Althea's spirit from the clutches of the underworld. His wrath, as boundless as the ocean's depths, would be the tide that would carry him through the gates of death itself. The earthshaker rose, the tempest of his emotions now a quiet storm of resolve. He laid Althea upon the altar, her final resting place a monument to their love. The sea, his domain, surged in response to his silent command, ready to bear him to the edge of the world and beyond. This was the escalation of sacrifice, the journey upon which he must embark, a quest not for power or dominion, but for the heart that had been torn from him by the might of Zeus's decree. The earthshaker would quell the spark no more, for now it burned within him as an undying flame, a balefire that would guide him through the darkest of realms. Chapter 8. Descent into Shadows. The earthshaker, Poseidon, stood at the precipice of the world, where the sun dare not trespass and the sea's embrace faltered against the ashen shores. Before him lay the entrance to Hades' realm, a chasm shrouded in the mists of oblivion, a gateway to the land of phantoms and lost souls. His heart, once buoyant with the currents of the deep, now anchored by sorrow, braced for the plunge into the abyss. In preparation for his odyssey into the netherworld, Poseidon sought the counsel of ancient oracles and the forgotten wisdom of primordial deities. Among the relics of a time before memory, he found the tools necessary for his passage: an obsidian compass to navigate the labyrinthine darkness, a cloak woven from the night itself to obscure his divine essence, and a silver-laden bident, brother to his trident, to guide and protect him through the haunts of the damned. The earthshaker's first ally in this quest was Charon, the ferryman. an ageless specter at the helm of his bone-crafted vessel. As Poseidon approached the murky waters of the Styx, the air thick with the scent of decay and lament, the boatman fixed his hollow gaze upon the deity. "Poseidon," Charon rasped, his voice the echo of 1,000 whispers, "why do you, who command the seas, seek passage through the river of souls?" "I seek that which has been unjustly taken from me," Poseidon replied, his voice steady as the tides. "I come to reclaim a spirit wronged by divine caprice." Charon's skeletal hand extended, the expected toll for conveyance glinting in the dim light. Poseidon placed within the ferryman's palm a coin of ancient mint, its value transcending the currency of mortal men. The vessel moved silently through the waters, the world of the living receding with each stroke of the oar. The darkness around them was absolute, a void where even the gods might lose their way. Poseidon's celestial eyes pierced the gloom, his resolve a burning flame within the cold expanse. As the river unfolded, the shadows began to whisper, voices of the once living, now but echoes in the void. "Earthshaker," they hissed, "do you not fear what lies ahead?" Poseidon, his grip firm upon the bident, replied, "Fear is a companion I have long dismissed. It holds no sway over the purpose that drives me." The ferryman, his silent vigil undisturbed by the voices, delivered the deity to the far shore where the Styx yielded to the fields of asphodel. Here, Poseidon encountered the shades, countless spirits wandering the gray expanse, their forms ephemeral as smoke. Among them moved Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft in the crossroads, her presence a flickering candle in the twilight realm. "Poseidon," she greeted, her eyes reflecting the knowledge of the arcane. "Your journey is fraught with peril. What hope do you hold in the face of such despair?" "The hope that love endures beyond the grasp of death," Poseidon declared, his determination unshaken. "Tell me, Hecate, what must I endure to reach the one I seek?" Hecate, her visage a map of the mysteries she guarded, offered a cryptic smile. "The path to reclaim a soul from the clutches of Hades is one no god has trod. You must confront the ruler of shadows, and in doing so, confront the very essence of your divinity." Their exchange, a litany of foresight and warning, resonated with the gravity of the task at hand. Poseidon accepted the goddess's advice, her words a guidepost in the terrain of the unknown. Poseidon's descent was not merely a physical journey, but an odyssey that tested the fabric of his being. Each step into Hades' dominion was a step away from the realm he had known, a sacrifice of the familiar for the chance to restore what had been severed by Zeus's decree. As the Earthshaker ventured deeper into the kingdom of the dead, the air grew colder, the silence deeper. Ahead loomed the towering gates of Hades' palace, a fortress wrought from onyx and suffering, the heart of the underworld. Here Poseidon would face his greatest challenge, not the monsters that lurked in the shadows, but the god who held dominion over life's finality. With the weight of his quest heavy upon his shoulders, Poseidon summoned the strength of the ocean's depths, his every step an evidence to the power of his will. The escalation of sacrifice had led him to this moment, the precipice of a confrontation that would decide the fate of a soul, and perhaps the very nature of love itself. Chapter 9. The Siren's Call. Poseidon traversed the silent expanse of Hades' realm, his gait unwavering as he moved through the penumbral corridors. The obsidian compass, a relic of unfathomable age, lay secure in his grasp, guiding him through the treacherous geography of the underworld. It was here, amidst the pall of eternal twilight, that he heard it, a melody so enchantingly sweet that it wound its way into the core of his being. A siren, her figure shrouded in the gloaming, perched upon a crag that jutted out like the prow of a sunken ship. Her hair flowed around her, a cascade of silver in the monochrome world, and her eyes, two gleaming emeralds, locked onto Poseidon with an allure that was both inviting and dangerous. "Great Earthshaker," the siren crooned, her voice a symphony of longing and promise. "Why do you wander so far from the lustrous embrace of your domain?" Poseidon paused, the siren's song a clawed hand upon his heart. "I seek what was mine, taken before its time," he replied, wary of the siren's fabled power to beguile. The siren tilted her head, her song weaving around him like the tendrils of a tide pool. "And what of the life you could have, free from the burdens of divinity? A life where Althea's touch is not forbidden, but welcomed." Her words struck deep, unearthing desires he had buried beneath waves of duty and divine expectation. "Speak plainly, creature of enchantment," Poseidon demanded, his voice firm yet not immune to the siren's influence. "Imagine a life unchained by the will of Zeus, a life where you and your beloved may walk in the sun," the siren tempted, her melody now a delicate dance around the fringes of his resolve. "I know the secrets that can bind your essence to mortality. A simple choice, and all you yearn for is within reach." Poseidon felt the weight of her offer, a choice that promised solace in the arms of his love, yet at the cost of all he had been. The compass pulsed within his palm, a steady reminder of his purpose, yet the siren's proposition enticed with the sweetness of forbidden fruit. "You offer a path fraught with shadows," Poseidon said, his thoughts adrift on the possibility of life untethered from Olympus. "Yet what price demands such a transformation?" The siren's smile was a thing of beauty and sorrow interwoven. "But a trifle," she soothed. "The relinquishment of your dominion, a god no more, but a man in full. Is it not a small sacrifice for an eternity with Althea?" A heavy silence befell them, the weight of millennia bearing down upon the earth-shaker. He envisioned a simple existence, days spent in the warmth of Althea's gaze, nights wrapped in her embrace without the specter of divine retribution looming over them. But as the vision swelled within his mind, another rose to meet it, a vision of the seas without their master, of his realm abandoned, and of a love that had been strong enough to brave the tides of fate. "No," Poseidon declared, his voice the crash of a mighty wave against the cliffs. "The love I bear for Althea is not bounded by the form I wear. It is as vast as the ocean and as eternal as the stars. I will not forsake the mantle I was born to bear, not even for the solace you promise." The siren's eyes darkened, her song faltering. "Then you choose suffering," she hissed, her form dissolving into the mists like a mirage dispelled by the light of truth. Poseidon turned away, his heart heavy with the choice reaffirmed. The moment of doubt had passed, the siren's call silenced by the thunder of his own conviction. He resumed his journey, the compass once again his guiding star, as he moved deeper into the shadows. The sacrifice demanded of him was clear, and he would not falter, for his quest was one of love, a love that transcended the very essence of life and death. Chapter 10. Divine Counsel. High atop the clouds of Mount Olympus, where the air shimmered with the essence of eternity, the pantheon of gods assembled. The throne room, a vast expanse lined with pillars of celestial marble, echoed with the murmur of deities whose countenances bore the gravity of the matter at hand. Zeus, his stature as imposing as the thunderclouds he commanded, presided over the assembly with an air of anticipation. His gaze, like bolts of lightning, swept across his kin, each of whom held dominion over facets of the cosmos. Hera, her presence as commanding as her title of queen, stood beside Zeus, her eyes reflecting the complex weave of loyalty and concern. "My lord," she began, her voice the very whisper of the winds that could fan the flames of fate, "Poseidon's quest strikes at the core of our covenant. If he should succeed in retrieving a soul from Hades, what chaos might follow?" The assembly stirred, a restless sea beneath a stormy sky. Murmurs rose like the tide, opinions as varied as the realms the gods oversaw. Athena, her gray eyes alight with the wisdom of warfare and craft, rose from her seat, her armor gleaming with the reflected glow of divine light. "Let us not be hasty in our judgment," she offered, her tone a measured cadence. "The Earthshaker's actions, while unprecedented, are driven by a purpose that transcends the bounds of our laws." Ares, the embodiment of battle's fury, scoffed at Athena's words. His muscular frame tense, his voice a clash of arms, he countered, "Purpose or not, it is a dangerous precedent. What would become of us if mortals no longer feared death, knowing the gods might intervene?" The discourse unfolded, a tapestry of perspectives that painted a picture of Olympus divided. Demeter, with a voice as nurturing as the harvest, expressed concern for the balance of life and death. Apollo, golden-haired and ever radiant, pondered the fate of prophecy should the natural order be undone. Hermes, the fleet-footed messenger, watched the exchange with keen interest, his caduceus held loosely in his hand. "And what of love?" he interjected, his voice carrying the weight of consideration. "Should we not ponder its role in the deeds of gods and men?" The question hung in the air, a feather caught in the updraft of contemplation. The gods, for all their might and majesty, found themselves at an impasse, the scales of decision wavering in the balance. Athena, sensing the moment of doubt that clouded the thoughts of her kin, spoke once more. Perhaps, she suggested, her voice a silken thread poised to mend the rift. There is a course that allows for the Earthshaker's return without unraveling the tapestry of existence. Zeus, who had listened in silence, his mind a tempest of consideration, nodded slowly. "Speak, daughter of wisdom," he commanded. "What path do you see?" The goddess, her eyes reflecting the depth of her strategic mind, replied, "We must not act in haste, for the actions of Poseidon, though driven by grief, may yet serve a purpose hidden from our sight. Let us observe, and in doing so, learn from the unfolding of events." The council, a pantheon that held the threads of the world in their hands, found merit in Athena's counsel. The assembly concluded, not with a decree, but with a collective breath drawn in anticipation of what the Earthshaker's journey might reveal. As the gods dispersed, each to their respective realm, the throne room grew silent once more, save for the soft whisper of Zeus's thoughts as he contemplated the weight of the choice before them. The moment of doubt had passed, but the future remained as uncertain as the currents that swirled around the pillars of Hercules, where the sea met the ends of the earth. Poseidon's fate, like the ocean he commanded, was vast and unfathomable. Chapter 11. The Underworld's Gate. Poseidon, sovereign of the sea, stood before the monolithic gates of the Underworld, their towering presence a silent challenge to any who dared seek entry. The onyx spires rose like the fangs of a slumbering leviathan, the intricate carvings upon their surface depicting the timeless dance of life and demise. The air here was thick with the scent of pomegranates and ash, a perfume that bespoke the domain of Hades. Before the gates stood Cerberus, the three-headed guardian, his eyes smoldering coals in the dim light, his growls a symphony of warning for the souls that approached. Poseidon stepped forward, his silver bident in hand, a relic he had acquired from the depths of his own dominion. Cerberus, he addressed the beast with a voice that resonated with the authority of oceanic depths. "I seek an audience with your master. Stand aside. Let me pass." The guardian snarled, the center head lunging forward, chains rattling as if echoing the creature's defiance. "Even you, Earthshaker, must abide by the rules of this realm. None may pass without the consent of the Lord of Shadows." The god's gaze did not waver, his eyes locked with the beast's fiery orbs. "I am not just any supplicant," Poseidon retorted. "I am an Olympian, brother to Hades. I demand my right to parley." The standoff continued, a battle of wills as potent as any clash of titans. The silence was eventually broken by the arrival of Hades himself, his form emerging from the darkness beyond the gates, a figure of regal power wrapped in a cloak of midnight velvet. "Hades," Poseidon called out, acknowledging the lord of the netherworld, "I have come to reclaim that which was taken by the folly of our brother." Hades, his features as stern as the stone that formed his kingdom, approached the gates. "Poseidon, your presence here disrupts the balance. Why should I entertain this foolhardy request?" The sea god's response was as steady as the tides. "Because it is not just my desire, but a matter of justice. Althea's life was cut short by Zeus's wrath. Her spirit now wanders your realm undeservedly." Hades considered this, his expression unreadable. "You speak of justice in a place that cares not for such concepts. The souls here are mine to command, regardless of the circumstances of their arrival." Poseidon felt the weight of the moment, the critical nature of his quest hanging in the balance. "Then name your price, Lord of the Dead. What must I offer to sway your hand?" The ruler of the underworld circled the Earthshaker, his steps silent upon the ashen ground. "What can you offer that holds value in this realm of shades and echoes?" Hades mused aloud, his eyes gleaming with a calculating light. Poseidon, his mind racing like the swift currents, knew that his bargaining chip must be something beyond the riches of the earth or the sea. "My trident," he said, the gravity of his offering as heavy as the sea floor, the symbol of my dominion for Althea's soul. Hades paused, the offer hanging between them like a blade poised to fall. "Your trident," he repeated, the idea tempting the edges of his domain's purpose. "A mighty weapon, capable of shifting the seas themselves." "Very well, Poseidon, bring forth your trident, and we shall have our accord." Poseidon nodded. The terms set, the deal struck. It was a sacrifice monumental in its scope, the relinquishing of a defining attribute of his identity and power. Yet for Althea, for the restoration of her spirit to the land of the living, it was a price he was willing to pay. With the understanding reached, the gates of the underworld creaked open, the sound like the groan of a ship's hull in the throes of a storm. Poseidon stepped through the threshold, the world of the dead welcoming an Olympian as it had never done before. The great sacrifice had been promised, and now the Earthshaker would venture into the heart of darkness to fulfill his part of the dire bargain. Chapter 12, Trail of Ordeals. In the labyrinthine depths of the underworld, Poseidon moved with the assuredness of a deity, yet each step forward marked a potential stride away from the eternal life he had always known. The shadowed corridors twisted and turned before him, an intricate maze woven by the hand of Daedalus himself, or so it was said, designed to confound the courage of any soul daring enough to enter. The Earthshaker's first challenge arose in the form of an ancient sphinx, her visage etched with the wear of eons, perched upon a pedestal that bore inscriptions lost to even the oldest of gods. Her eyes, golden and unblinking, fixed upon Poseidon as he neared. "Proud son of the sea," she intoned, her voice a melodic timbre that belied the danger of her words. "Answer my riddle, or join the ranks of the silent shades that wander my domain." Poseidon nodded, accepting the terms of the engagement. "Speak your riddle, guardian of the crossroads," he replied, his voice echoing through the cavernous expanse. "What force and strength cannot get through, I with my unique teeth can do." "What am I?" the Sphinx asked, her tail flicking with anticipatory grace. The sea god pondered, his mind sifting through the vast knowledge he possessed. "A key," he answered, his tone laced with confidence. A hiss of acknowledgement escaped the Sphinx as she retreated into the shadows, the path ahead now open. Poseidon advanced, the riddle but the first of many trials, each designed to test the mettle of his divine spirit. Deeper into the underworld he ventured, where the river Phlegethon flowed, its fiery currents a stark contrast to the cold waters Poseidon so often commanded. Here he encountered the Hydra, a monstrous serpent with venomous breath and numerous heads poised to strike. The beast lunged, its jaws seeking to ensnare the intruder, but Poseidon wielded his silver bident with the skill of a warrior god. He parried and thrust, his movements a dance of power and precision. Each head he severed was a confirmation to his determination, a step closer to the salvation of his beloved Althea. Upon the defeat of the Hydra, the Earthshaker pressed on, his form now bearing the marks of battle, the sweat upon his brow a sign of his exertion. Poseidon's trials were far from over, for Hades had decreed a series of challenges that would push the boundaries of his immortal endurance. Next, he stood before the fields of mourning, where the spirits of the heartbroken wandered, their cries a noise of loss and longing. The specters reached for him, their hands grasping, seeking to pull him into their endless sorrow. Poseidon steeled his resolve, his eyes searching for the path through the sea of despair. "I walk among you, but I am not of you," he declared, his voice a bastion against the tide of grief. "My love is not lost, but waits to be reclaimed." The spirits, hearing the conviction in his voice, parted like the Red Sea, allowing him passage. Through the sorrowful plain, Poseidon moved with the assurance of one who knows the love he seeks is not beyond reach but lies ahead, awaiting his triumph. Finally, Poseidon came upon the shores of the Acheron, where the souls of the dead were ferried. Waiting for him was Charon, the boatman, his hand outstretched for the toll. But Poseidon's passage required no coin. His payment was of a different sort. "You have traversed the trials," Charon rasped, his eyes reflecting the countless journeys he had made. "Now you must face the Lord of the Dead himself. Are you prepared to forfeit that which makes you a god?" "I am," Poseidon affirmed, his voice unwavering. "For Althea, I will make the great sacrifice." The boatman nodded, a gesture that signaled the momentous nature of the choice. Together they sailed across the Acheron, the waters calm and silent beneath the oars' steady rhythm. The trials had tested Poseidon's strength, his intellect, his fortitude, and his endurance. But the greatest test lay before him, in the heart of Hades' palace, where he would confront the ruler of the underworld and bargain for the soul of his mortal love. Each ordeal had brought him closer to this moment, where his immortality hung in the balance, a price he was willing to pay for the return of Althea. Chapter 13. Bargain with Death. The throne room of Hades was a cavernous expanse, walls festooned with carvings that depicted the epochs of men and the caprices of gods. The air was still, heavy with the scent of oblivion. Here Poseidon stood, his form a lone bulwark against the desolation that surrounded him. Hades, seated upon his throne fashioned from the bones of the earth, regarded the ocean lord with a gaze that cut through the shadow and silence. Brother Hades began, his voice echoing off the stone like a whisper through the chasm of time. You have traversed my realm, faced the guardians of my gates, and now you stand before me with a plea for the soul of a mortal. Speak your terms. Poseidon, whose sea-green eyes held the tempest of his journey, replied with solemnity, I offer my trident, symbol of my power and mastery over the oceans, in exchange for the soul of Althea. A slow, measured breath escaped Hades as he weighed the proposition. A generous offering indeed, yet the soul you seek to reclaim carries the touch of Zeus's wrath, a complicated weave to unravel. Poseidon's stance remained firm, though the weight of consequence bore down upon him. Name your additional price. I stand ready to barter. A silence settled over the chamber, a quiet so profound it seemed to absorb sound itself. Hades rose from his throne, his presence commanding the very essence of the underworld. The trident shall be mine, he decreed, and the soul of Althea returned to the land of the living. However, her memories of you, Poseidon, will be as shadows in the fog, present, yet unreachable. The pronouncement hung in the air, a sentence that threatened to cleave Poseidon's resolve. To have Althea returned, yet devoid of their shared bond, was a fate crueler than her remaining within the underworld's grip. Poseidon's voice, when it came, was the rumble of distant waves breaking upon a desolate shore. To strip her memories is to erase the essence of our connection, the very heart of why I stand before you now. Hades walked the length of his dais, his movements deliberate. Consider this, brother. Her return to life, free from the torment of divine entanglement, may be the greatest gift you can offer. A life unburdened by the shadow of Olympus. The ocean lord's thoughts churned like a whirlpool. To restore Althea to life was his deepest desire, yet without the memories of their time together would the depth of that life not seem shallow. May I not offer another token in lieu of this condition? Poseidon asked, desperation threading his tone. Hades returned to his throne, his countenance a mask of indifference. I have spoken, Poseidon. This is the bargain. Will you accept the terms, or do you forsake the quest and accept the sorrow as your companion? The gravity of the choice anchored Poseidon's feet to the ground. The sacrifice required was profound, a relinquishing of their shared past, the erasure of every tender word and stolen glance. Yet to see Althea breathe the air of the living once more, to grant her the freedom of a life unmarred by celestial strife, was a gift only he could bestow. With the weight of eternity pressing upon his shoulders, Poseidon nodded. I accept, Hades. Let the memories be as they may. Return Althea to the realm above, and let her live. A somber smile, if it could be called such, crossed Hades' lips. It is done. The soul of Althea shall pass from my domain at the rise of dawn. She will awaken by the shores of her beloved Aegean Sea, the sun's rays heralding her second birth. And with the pact sealed, Poseidon relinquished his trident, the emblem of his godhood and might. A sense of emptiness enveloped him, a void where once the power of the seas had surged through his veins. Now he stood diminished, yet resolute in the knowledge that his sacrifice was the harbinger of Althea's new dawn. In the stillness of the underworld's throne room, beside the Lord of the Dead, Poseidon, once the Earthshaker, embraced the cost of his love's salvation. The great sacrifice had been made, and though his heart may forever ache with the loss of their shared past, the future he had secured for Althea was one of life, a life that would continue on, as relentless and enduring as the tides. Chapter 14. A World Changed. Althea's eyelids fluttered open to the caress of dawn's light, her senses greeted by the briny scent of the Aegean Sea and the gentle hush of waves lapping the shore. Disoriented, she sat up, her gaze sweeping across the landscape that was both alien and strangely familiar. The sand beneath her was a canvas of gold and white, the sky a vast expanse of softening blues and pinks as the night retreated. A shiver coursed through her as she wrapped her arms around her knees, her mind grappling with the fragments of memories that seemed to slip through her fingers like water. She stood and walked towards the water, the coolness of the early morning sea washing over her feet, grounding her in the now. "Beautiful, isn't it?" came a voice, rich and deep, tinged with an accent that spoke of the ocean's depths. Althea turned to find a man standing a short distance away, his eyes the color of the sea at storm, hair dark as the deepest trench. He had a rugged countenance, one that bore the marks of having lived, and his posture held a quiet strength. She nodded, her response cautious yet curious. "It is. Have we met before? You seem familiar." The man, known to her only as a distant echo, offered a bittersweet smile. "Once, perhaps, in another life," he said, his tone carrying a resonance that seemed to stir something within her. Althea's brow furrowed, her mind reaching for a past that remained shrouded in mist. "I don't understand. I feel as though I've awoken from a long slumber, and yet I can't recall my dreams." The man approached, maintaining a respectful distance. "Sometimes the mind protects us by letting go of memories too painful to bear," he offered, his words careful, measured. "But the heart, it remembers what the mind forgets." She looked out at the horizon, the sun cresting above the water in a slow ascent. "My heart feels heavy, as if it mourns a loss it cannot name." He watched her, a myriad of emotions playing across his features, a tapestry of sorrow and affection. Loss is the twin of love. We cannot know one without the other. Althea turned to face him fully, her hazel eyes searching his. "And you, stranger, what brings you to these shores?" "I am drawn to the sea, always have been," he replied, his gaze never leaving hers. "It's where I find clarity, where I feel most at home." The conversation lingered between them, a bridge spanning the gap of forgotten intimacy. Althea felt an inexplicable connection to the man before her, a pull as relentless as the tide. "Will you stay?" she asked, the query slipping from her lips before she could weigh its implications. He took a step closer, his presence a magnetic force. "For a while, if you'll permit it. There are things about this place I could show you, stories of the sea and sky." Althea considered his offer, something within her yearning to delve into the mysteries he promised. "Yes, I'd like that," she consented, a faint smile gracing her lips. As they walked along the shoreline, the man recounted tales of the ocean's wonders and the creatures that dwelled within its embrace. Althea listened, captivated, each story painting a picture of a world both grand and intimate. Unseen by both, the realm of gods and mortals subtly shifted, realigning under the weight of Poseidon's choice. His sacrifice, a silent undercurrent, had altered the very fabric of existence, bridging the chasm between the divine and the earthly. And as Althea learned from the man who was once a god, her past a distant echo, they began to weave a new tapestry, one not of celestial design, but of human connection, simple and true. The aftermath of sacrifice lingered, the resonance of what had been given up and what had been gained echoed silently in the hallowed halls of memory and time. Chapter 15. The Depths of Love. Althea strode through the agora, her figure a familiar sight amongst the stalls and the throngs of people. The marketplace of Aegae was alive with the clamor of commerce and the rich tapestry of daily life. Fishermen haggled over the price of their catch, their voices carrying over the din like seagulls over the ocean. She paused by a stall adorned with an array of pottery, the intricate designs telling tales of heroes and gods. The potter, an elderly man with hands stained by clay, greeted her with a respectful nod. "Good morning, Althea. Have you come to add another piece to your collection?" "Yes, Eumaeus," she replied, her fingers tracing the lines of a crater. "Your work brings a sense of the divine into my home." Eumaeus beamed, pleased by her words. "If only the gods appreciated my craft as much as you do." A knowing smile touched her lips. "Perhaps they do, in their own way." Her gaze lingered on a particular amphora, the image of Poseidon rendered in exquisite detail. From a distance, the man who once commanded the seas and shook the earth watched her with a gaze laden with an affection that knew no bounds. He was known to the people of Aegae simply as Pelagos, a solitary figure whose affinity for the sea was as evident as the tides. Althea turned away from the stall, her purchases in hand, and made her way towards the temple. Her role as a priestess was performed with a devotion that seemed to come from a place deep within her soul. Pelagos moved through the agora, unseen by her, a silent sentinel whose watch over Althea was as constant as the North Star. His steps led him to the edge of the agora, where he could oversee her passage. "Strange, isn't it? How she seems to look for something, or someone she can't remember," remarked a fruit seller to Pelagos, noting Althea's occasional pause to glance at the horizon. Pelagos nodded, his voice low. The heart remembers what the mind does not. She feels the absence, even if she cannot name it. The seller shrugged, turning his attention back to his wares. "Well, if the gods willed it, who are we to question?" "Indeed," Pelagos murmured, his eyes never leaving Althea. As the day gave way to the hues of evening, Althea made her way to the shoreline, the place where she had awakened to this new life. She sat upon a rock, gazing out at the expanse of water that stretched to meet the sky. Pelagos approached, his presence a quiet comfort. "It's beautiful, isn't it? The way the sea and sky blend at the edge of the world." Althea turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you believe there's something beyond that line? A place where the gods might dwell?" He sat beside her, his gaze joining hers. "I believe there are mysteries beyond our knowing, realms that exist outside our grasp. The gods have their place, as do we." She sighed, a note of wistfulness in her voice. "Sometimes I dream of a voice, one that calls to me from across the waves. It's silly, I know." Pelagos's heart ached with the weight of his secret, the truth of his identity and his love for her. "Not silly at all. Perhaps it's a sign that you're connected to something greater, something divine." Althea smiled, her eyes reflecting the last light of day. "Maybe. For now I am content to serve here, among the people who need me." As night fell and the stars claimed their place in the heavens, Pelagos remained by Althea's side, a confirmation to a love that transcended the mortal coil. His sacrifice, now immortalized in the whispers of legend, was etched in the very fabric of the world, a world forever changed by the depths of his love. And though Althea's memories of their shared past had been washed away like footprints on the sand, the essence of their bond lingered, as enduring as the sea that whispered to them both, calling them to its embrace. Pelagos, once a god, now a man, found peace in the knowledge that his sacrifice had given Althea the gift of life, a chance to fulfill her destiny in a world that was at once both old and new.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe now and visit our website StoryWave.ai to start creating your own generative audiobooks today. StoryWave is the only true on-demand entertainment portal